It's the wooden trouble. His forest with the reeking heat. The gate lies the sapling stubble. And to think when a seven snow
Well, welcome everybody. Let me give you a list of pieces of music by Vaughan Williams. Vocal music: On Wenlock Edge, Songs of Travel, Along the Field, the 10 Blake songs, 4 hymns, folk songs, and lots more, all on one new album featuring our guest this month, the distinguished French tenor Cyrille Dubois. Welcome, Cyrille, and thank you for this album.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really, really glad to be with you today.
So, Vaughan Williams, I've got to ask, how far back in your life has there been an interest in his music, I wonder?
So, as long as I remember, as a singer, I've always been interested in English music so far because when I discovered the music, I discovered it with an English choir master who was Robert Weddell, and so he introduced ourselves as children as with a lot of English music at that time, and so this is, as far as I remember, I grew up with some very famous folk songs and obviously with Britain and some other composers such as Vaughan Williams. When I became merely conscious of the importance of this composer was a bit later when I grew up, when my voice broke, and I discovered it when I was in the Musical Academy of Paris because I tried to dedicate myself a lot in the chamber music and especially with piano, but not only, as you can see in this program, and. So I discovered this composer because I was looking around some English music that could be interesting as a French singer to make it discovered. So it's about 15 years old now that I started to work with, of course, the most famous song cycle, the Songs of Travel, and so for me that was the first encounter with this composer, Vaughan Williams, and since then I've tried to learn more and more about this music and each time I feel blessed to discover this kind of music and to have it and to discover more and more. So this is how it came.
Yeah. So, from what you've said, obviously you're the genius behind this recording project. It's you that's going to people and saying, we must do this.
So not only me, of course, because there is a strong partnership with the pianist of the project, who is Anne Le Bozec. She is the chairwoman of the lead and melody class in Paris Musical Academy. I followed her lessons when I was a student, but and then we already have started to work along this repertoire with the first CD which was released also in the Nomad company around the Britain cycle, as I said, and more specifically the canticles, the 5 canticles. And so we made a recording about that because as I said, I discovered maybe the first composer I discovered with the English music was Benjamin Britten. And so it has always been around my area, around my world, and so I wanted to do this recording first, and so following this envy, we were wondering what kind of other music, English music, we could do, and Vaughan Williams came and struck to my head, and so. It is really interesting to see how difficult it is for the English music to come into France or because it's not always not a lot performed, not as much as German music, for instance. And personally, I just adore the English culture and the English music. So as much as I can do it,
Yeah.
I am
But
happy.
but Cyril, the two of you, had the enthusiasm of this project, but you had to convince the record company, which is I think Nomad Music, which is a very interesting title for a
Exactly.
record. So how did you convince them?
It was not difficult at all because it's a partnership that started maybe 5 to 10 years ago now when we first did our first recording, which was the Britain's Canticle, and so they are really happy to, and they really find the interest to perform and to make this music discovered more and more. And so the angle also what we wanted to do is to try to do it as the Frenchie. As I mean, nobody on this album is an English speaker, native English speaker, and so it was interesting to have. Okay, we know the music, we know the grammar, and so let's try to find if we have something interesting to say about the performance of this music without having the background, the knowledge of how the English music should be performed. And so it was an interesting angle for us, and just a bet. And we hope we did not be too far from the. We hope that the apple didn't drop too far from the tree.
As they say. So, having said that, I mean, what do you think you have offered in these recordings that is French or individual that you might not get from an English?
It's a really difficult question
Yeah.
because, of course, I've been interested in what my fellows and my estimated colleagues have done before. So I've tried to immerse myself a lot in the atmosphere of the English music and trying to be as faithful as possible. But also, I have my own story on the way of performing the lead and melody and the art song in general. And so I think that following this path, that it should be completely international, as many singers are, and the opposite is also true. That most of the most interesting singers in the French melody are are often non-native French speakers. When I think to Félicité Lott or Ellie Ameling, or so they are incredible performers for the French melody. So I thought that maybe the opposite could be interesting and also have another offer another point of view. At least humbly, we think that we can approach it very a bit differently, and so to it's a very difficult balance to find between being faithful to what the composer and what the aesthetic and what the atmosphere should be, not to be against what the was the original purpose of the composition, but trying to find a color. And we hope that we bring a color, a French color on this one. So talking about that, what is the French color? This is the most interesting
Of
question.
course. But
And
having said that, we know, of course, that Vaughan Williams did study with Maurice Ravel. We
Ravel,
know that.
obviously.
And I wonder if in any of these pieces on the album you detect a French influence. What do you think?
I think that even if we are the best enemies, I mean, in the histories, French and English, we are the closest, and what is reunited us is what, yeah, it's much more important than anything else. And so, of course, the mixture of this culture has always been very narrow and very interesting. And so the fact that he studied with Ravel, it's not obvious, but it's there. I mean, as a French knower of what we call La Belle Époque and all these moments and these colors we find through Debussy, Ravel, Fauré. We have a sense of the way it has been performed at that time, and that we can find in the music of Vaughan Williams as a brotherhood somehow, or so it's really linked. It's not completely French way, of course. It's really English. It's deeply
Yeah.
English, but there is these things that are really next to. And so there is a connection,
Well,
and trying to find to do the the English music having this background and this knowledge about how close the tune music was is also an interesting point of view,
yeah.
I think.
Well, it sounds like an argument for an entente cordiale, Cyrille.
Yes,
Me. But
definitely.
I suppose we should think that on Wenlock Edge, composed when it was, that we might think is where a French influence may be most obvious, seeing as he had studied with Ravel quite recently. I don't know if you think that's the case about On Wenlock Edge.
Yes, yes. The approach of the chamber music he has um, is is probably the way it's orchestrated, and the research of the color or of the effects is maybe linked to the to what he heard when he came to study with Ravel. But there is also this deeply sense of this is also the title of the album Landscapes, which is truly linked to what we could imagine, and so there is this breathing around the English atmosphere. So it's a very savant way of, I don't know the word in English, but yeah, interesting way to mix the two things. And I could not say that I find the harmony of Ravel inside the Wenlock Edge, but I think the way he worked around the piece may be linked most strongly to what he studied with him.
Yeah. So landscapes, as you say, is the title, and I mean, you know this country well. I don't know if you've traveled around the English
As
landscapes,
much as I
and
can, yeah.
and of course, one could argue that should be an element in your understanding of the music, that you understand the English landscapes. I mean, do you think that's the case?
I've traveled many times in your incredible country, and I wish I could come more. But the chance I had at a certain moment of my life was to come and study in England. It was in the East Coast, in the very close to Norwich, in the place called Lowestoft, which is not very far from Britain. Grew up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I've been influenced on the moment I had on this moment to sing with English choirs, to discover much more about the country, and then to travel also. But there are still some very obscure bits of your incredible country I still don't know, like the Cornwall or the Irish side. But I had the chance to visit a bit of Scotland, and my favorite parts are where I went when I was a child, and it was Oxford, and I could also spend that in a school exchange with New College when we were
Yeah,
young
well,
and
of course,
yeah.
Vaughan Williams knew Oxford very well, even though he studied at Cambridge. I mean, have you read up a lot about Vaughan Williams's life? Has that been
Mm.
something that's prepared you for this?
So we've been accompanied by a fantastic English coach who is Sophie de Codaven, who is English herself, and I think she has some family links with Vaughan Williams somehow. But it's I don't want to say too wrong things, so I can't remember. And so she was very inspiring also to tell us about the stories and in which circumstance it was created, and the also the choice, the incredible choice he was doing on the poetry, which is also a link we find in between Vaughan Williams and the French composers who were so incredibly perfect on the choice the poets they were making into the music. And that was maybe what was the most fascinating for me in this travel, in this journey with Vaughan Williams, is how deep it was. The music was linked to the poetry, and so we were either having a very modern poetry, but also some very deep and interesting things in the literature, and so. Um, Yes, I loved to go deep into the poet,
Yeah,
and that's the work we did with Sophie and with Anne. And
yeah.
so,
As we know, he was a very, we say in English, well-read person. He was a very literary composer. So yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Um, I'm intrigued that it's like a double album, this,
Mhm.
and I listed all the pieces there. And I wonder how many of those you have been singing regularly. I mean, have you been able to sing in
So
these cycles?
So two of the cycle we had already performed with before we started to record it. I performed maybe a couple of times the songs of travel. It was not with Anne, but it was with another pianist where I discovered this cycle. But with Anne, we had the chance to do a couple of times the hymns, which were
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Apart from that, and also, yeah, maybe when Lockage once, I think, yeah, maybe when Lockage also. But all the other cycles I discovered, it was the first time for the recording, and but it's very difficult to program it because even if the orchestration is interesting, I mean, only an instrument with a voice, it goes so deep, and it is 20 minutes of the single, even if the atmosphere is changing accordingly to the text, it's the same atmosphere, and so to keep an audience, we cannot do it with every audience, so it's a bit more difficult to program it.
Yeah.
And as it is a double album, I wish I would have discovered some other kind of cycle, which is Merciless Beauty. I think it's with two violins and the cello, but I discovered
Next one.
it too
Next one.
late.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but having made this recording and it came out 2 or 3 months ago, has it already interested people who might like you to perform it in
yes,
France or elsewhere?
definitely. Yeah, we had a contact with the Ravel Foundation, who wanted to obviously to have a link and to put this music there. But I have to say it's quite difficult to nowadays to perform this classical music and to perform this chamber music. There are less and less auditoriums who are interested in programming it, and it is really a challenge for us to find the best way to make understand that it's incredible music, and it
Yeah.
has not to die only a century after it was created.
Yeah. Well, of course, you've been exploring in this album music that many Vaughan Williams enthusiasts will know less well than others. And Along the Field and the Ten Blake songs will
Yes.
not be so well known to many people watching this. So tell us a little something. Well, let's choose the Ten Blake songs. I mean,
So
sell it to us, Cyrille.
the first interesting for me was to work with my dearest friend Baptiste Gibier in the oboe, who is an incredible oboe player, and I really wanted, when I discovered, I was so excited because I was finding that we had a lot of a bit too much strings in this project, so it was interesting to have another color and to find it. It's a very deep cycle. I mean, we try to transpose it in the most non-aesthetic way, but trying to link as much as possible the 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 quality of the music to the text, and like if the music was the element added to what was said. And I spent a lot of time only saying the text and trying
Right.
to find out how to speak it, the rhythm, and then when we add the music, uh, um, it gives us something that has to be not too far from what we worked on the speaking. And what is really interesting in this cycle also is the three a cappella. It is really the text first and then the music sometimes added with these a cappella things, and the oboe is adding another perspective, and the dialogue we can have in between the two instruments, because I consider myself much more as an instrument, as but rather than a singer, a stupid singer singing the text, and no, it's completely a deep mixing, mélange, as we say in French, to of these to be as faithful as possible to the text of Blake, which is quite complicated to understand, but so deep and so modern, and the music of Vaughan Williams.
Yeah. From your previous recordings that I know, I'm so aware. I mean, if I can say it, you're a very passionate singer. You feel that you really have to reach out to your audience, whether they're listening on to a CD or in a concert hall. And so the question here is, when you think about Vaughan Williams as somebody who might look like a very traditional English person, possibly reserved and not very passionate, in this music, do you hear passion that you can latch on to, Cyrille?
I find passion in every music I have the chance to perform, and it's in any project I start, I try to find the yeah what I can how I can go to the heart of the audience, because I consider myself much more as someone who is passing the thing from the composer to the auditor, to the public, rather than someone who has to defend. And it's I'm connecting my heart to what I find out of this music, and trying to be as faithful as possible to what the composer would have wanted when he created the so it is where the interpretation is important, because I have not Vaughan Williams' phone number, so unfortunately, I don't know how he wanted things to. But it's an interesting thing for the modern composer. They have to be as accurate as possible as about what they want, because then otherwise it gives. I mean, by chance, it's either a chance or a disadvantage. To the interpreter can have a lot of possibility to perform the music, and
Well,
so but yes, I try to find as much, and I give as much as I can from myself, from my heart, and everything that I believe in, to for the audience to understand what I think the composer was wanting at that time.
Sigil, we could go on talking for a long time. It's absolutely fascinating what you
Oh,
have to
thank you
say.
so much.
We wish this recording all the very, very best.
I cross my
And
fingers.
what I look forward to is seeing you perform some of it actually in the UK. And if that's really impossible, I'll expect you to let me know when you're performing it in France, and I'll see if I can get across to it.
Oh, thank
But
you. Thank you so
Cyrille
much.
Dubois, thank you very much indeed. The album
Thank
is
you all.
Landscapes, and the record company Nomad Music, which I think is like all one word. But Cyrille, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Along the field as we came by, a year ago, my love and I, the aspen over stile and stone was talking to itself alone. Oh, who are these that kiss and pass? A country lover and his lass, two lovers looking to be wed, and time shall put them both to bed. But she